Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. One and only Survivor Now, season 48, StockWatch, episode 11. What's up, Jay, as well? Nice seeing you, Jay, my brother from another mother. Josh, how are you doing today? I feel like we didn't do our our original start. Normally we join the stream a little early, we talk, we yap. But we haven't done that. How have you been? You've been good since last week?
Been good. I feel like we're gonna jump into a great discussion. Given the fact that the both of us kind of got a sneak peek at each other's rankings, we know where we feel. I have a lot of questions about where you're thinking this season's gonna lead, and
Yeah.
I feel like I'm seeing a pretty direct route as to who's gonna win this season. Even though I don't have that person as my winner pick this episode, I still feel like there's some rising traction and we might see a little bit of a surprise at finale night.
I feel like I think the way you look at the season and the way you view a season will impact the way you get surprised by the end of it, by the end result. I think it personally, if nothing else, this season reminds me of Survivor 43, right? Edgically, where there really wasn't a good player. Like Jesse was too obvious. Cassidy was there, and that was everyone's winner pick. Carlo was washed at the merge. That's what I'm saying, Jay. This is why people stay on the Will West train, because I stick with my convictions. But no, Jay agrees 43 coded. Do you agree with that too? Do you feel like no matter what, some group is going to be surprised? Because I've seen a legitimate case for every single player left in the game to be a winner outside of Mitch.
That's kind of where I feel, except I feel like everyone has a shot to win the game. Mitch definitely has the hardest shot at winning this game sitting in the end, just resume wise. But I do feel like everyone still has an opportunity to win the game if they are able to describe their game well to the jury remaining. We are going to see a bitter jury this season. It still seems that David is going to be playing bitter. We know that Chrissy's going to be playing bitter a little bit as well. For me, I don't see this being 43 coded, only because I feel like for 43, it was two powerhouse players with somebody who didn't really play a game that could be necessarily compared to the level of the two sitting next to them in 43. Here, I do feel like everyone has a shot. Everyone has their own story and their own path that they took to get to the end.
Yeah. And even Jay agrees David Starr, Chrissy, and Mary are going to be mad at the final. I also agree. And I think the idea of this being a bitter jury season is why the season is edited the way it is, because it's been a very weird, no one really has a good edit. Even today, I don't think anyone came out of this episode looking good except for Eva. And we'll get to that later as well. And one more question before we really get into the nitty-gritty meat and potatoes of this. Do you agree that the season is a wash?
No.
I want to ask about your just opinions on the season.
So I still am going to say I'm very high on this season. I think right now it's a really tough spot for the audience, because I've said it myself, and I guess I've recognized that other people who, as viewers, have said that, this season is kind of on a decline. I would like to say, hold out until the finale, because I feel like we've kind of seen a few episodes, at least in a row, being the obvious votes. The Cedrics, the Chrissys, the Stars, the Marys. David was the only vote that we've really had that was exciting for the first time in that kind of pattern, I guess you could say. I would like to say just kind of stick to it. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
we're taking the easy route here, and as viewers, we like to see that. Let me rephrase. We like to see those big moves. We're not seeing that right now, but
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that it won't happen. It sucks, obviously. You know, when you have that
Yeah.
group of people that you want to see start targeting each other, and we're not seeing that yet. We could talk about that a little bit more because it's something I want to add to a couple of players' games
Yeah.
this season, and kind of to touch base what we talked about last week on making a move this week.
Yeah. Before we get into it, I just want to point out a few comments. Mainly Daryl, once again, backing up Eva. Daryl, if you don't know, if you're new here on the Survive Now StockWatch, Daryl has been a big fan of Eva's game and story and narrative, and Daryl's been in the comments every week, really rooting for Eva, and I'm just happy that he's able to back up Eva in this moment. Also want to point out, Jay, I disagree. I think Camilla backed up what Eva was talking about with the coconut etiquette. Um, and yeah, and this is basically what I was about to say. Shout out to Daryl. I agree with that dichotomy 100%. Where I agree that like Eva shouldn't be mad at Mary for wanting to bust open coconuts because realistically, going, oh, is this our last coconut together? To someone you're about to vote out is genuinely wild. But you know, I think people mistake it for being negative because I think it is negative, but clearly perception is reality on the island. Anywho, want to talk about Mitch real quick before we get to everyone else?
Mitch, you want to talk about Mary a little bit?
Oh yeah, we can talk about Mary.
Okay.
No offense to Mary, but Mary, I didn't see it this season.
I saw it, and you know, I'm still standing on what I said with Mary previously. If Mary made it to the end of this game, I feel like Mary could have had a very real shot at winning this game. Mary would have been that
100%.
dark horse candidate, just being the last member of Vula and having to survive so long by yourself without any of the connections you made in like the first, I don't know, 7-11 days. I mean, that's pretty impressive. I don't obviously I can't say I don't know how Mary played in the days leading up to Mary's vote out. But you know, some of the things like with the coconut and telling Joe in front of everybody that you're gonna vote him, like things like that, may not have been the best move. It might have put a bigger target. But it was important for us as viewers to see that Mary did that because it set the chain of events for the show. It showed way more weakness in the other players. And I want to kind of highlight that because that's important that if people know that in the game, that's something to kind of be capitalized on. And I think that was shown in the previews for next week.
Yeah, I think Mary was just doomed on a season that was never going to favor her. I think being placed on a pretty bad tribe, no offense, I don't know what they were thinking when they made the Vula tribe, especially on the same season as Logi, the strongest looking tribe we've seen of New Era. I do think on the island in the game, she had a legitimate shot, but the second Mary made the merge, and her visibility tanked. Just no screen time. She got barely any confessionals until the last episode. And so it's rough because she could have been this crazy underdog, dark horse player and contender. Instead, she got relegated to just being a sidekick of a pretty unlikable figure later on in the season. And I agree. I think Mary should have went even further, especially throwing Kyle under the bus, someone who is very entrapped. I kind of wish Camilla would have been sneaky and would have told Mary to blow up Kyle's position, that Kyle was considering flipping, I think that would have had a lot of major upside. I think, honestly, it might be a little crackpot. I do apologize for talking for the last 20 minutes, but I think if Camilla goes and tells Mary, like, hey, Kyle is considering, but we need to blow it up, Mary has nothing to lose. She really doesn't. Why does she care that, Joe and Kyle are best friends? Go to Joe and say, Kyle wants to flip. What are you going to do about that? Worst case, Joe doesn't believe her, right, and just votes Mary off anyways. Worst case, Mary's already going. Mary was no matter what not surviving this vote unless she had immunity, but cause a rift between the two players. You can't just sit there and do nothing. You know that there's some friction between them. You understand that Kyle almost blew up his whole game to save Camilla in the last two tribals anyways. Yeah, but she was always doomed to fail, I think, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I want to look at that jury that's on the bottom of that screen in the colored pictures that we kind of have, those 5 players.
Yeah.
I see voting blocks here, like people that will 100% vote together in that jury house, especially with David and Mary having the same ideology and what they want in this game. That could be really dangerous. You might not just be swaying one vote here. You may be swaying a pair of votes that are going towards the same direction. So that might be something to consider when it comes to a speech or, trying to earn jury votes, because clearly this jury is very specific in what they're looking for in a winner.
Yeah. And I do think there's going to be a lot of bitterness, especially when you have like a good guys-esque alliance, because I'm sure David is going back into the jury house saying, like, me and Joe, we had this pact. We wanted a good guy to win, and now he's not doing it. He's not there. And I feel like a lot of eyes are going to be on Joe, especially now Mary coming back, because Mary knew Joe's social game, right? She kind of read Joe really, really well. And so I think Joe has a much, much steeper hill than we would realize. And I think a lot of small things this episode, I think, will matter as we talk about the people left in the game. Personally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anywho, for realsies this time, shall we go to Mitch?
Yeah, let's go to Mitch.
Because I feel like we won't talk about Mitch that much, and I feel like we're going to talk about a lot of other people. We have Mitch dead last. This was a bad episode for Mitch. This was the same bad episode that Mitch had last episode, and the episode before, and the episode before. Mitch, I think he's becoming a GOAT. I hate to say it. I hate it. I hate to say it, but he's the new Ben. He's the new Jake. He's the new Owen.
No, honestly, I would have to agree. Just from what we've seen so far in this game, I don't see any moves at all that Mitch can claim to fame here, and nothing that the editor's showing us. It's really not showing us anything winner edit at all coming from them. I had such high hopes for Mitch coming in preseason. It's just so far we're not really seeing anything. And when you're at a final 6 and you got 3 more tribal councils to go to, one of them being a fire making, 2 of them you have an opportunity to make a move still left. You don't really have the numbers to make something happen, because other people's alliances and duos will triumph over those alliances. At this point, I think it is impossible for Mitch to make a move where Mitch will be the claim to fame here. It will be solely Mitch's move. I think it's impossible here. I think if Mitch sits in the end, Mitch probably will not win this game.
Which I also want to bring back up. I'm pretty sure I called Mitch a 0 vote finalist episode 5.
Well, you did. You called it
at the swap, and no one believed me. They're like, Mitch is such a jury threat. Everyone loves Mitch. Mitch is like a great guy. But I am so good at this game. I'm so good at Edgic. That's all I wanted to bring up.
No,
you know.
you definitely said that. And you know what?
Oh,
I will fully agree with you here. If Mitch does sit in the end in a final situation, I mean, I think it's a guarantee at this point that Mitch is going to be the one that gets the least amount of votes out of
yeah.
them. Mitch will be third place if Mitch is brought to the end. Now, the problem is that we have players in this game who are stating that Mitch is the next to go after Mary.
Yeah.
Joe is stating that. Now, if Kyle and Camilla can maybe get the ball rolling, get Joe to start spiraling as we saw in those previews, then maybe Mitch might not be the next to go. But if it's not Mitch, Joe will be the next to go. And that causes problems. But obviously,
Yeah.
know that there's potential to prevent that from happening. So it's not looking good for Mitch.
It's not.
But if anybody wants to win the game, taking Mitch to the end might not be a bad idea. It's just a harder trajectory to keep Mitch around with him playing, because when I look at Logi on this tribe here, looking at 3 Siva, 3 Logi, I don't see that Logi group breaking up or taking a shot at each other before they take a shot at Mitch.
I have a crazy crackpot theory. It kind of it doesn't break the flow or spoil the rest of the rankings, but I just want to picture a scenario with you real quick. What if Shaheen wins immunity next episode?
Yeah.
I think we might be set up for him to win one. He talked about it earlier this episode after the challenge. He's like, all I want is immunity. I feel like that is a weird confessional to just have out of nowhere, right? Because he was also talking about the state of the camp. Really didn't need to include that. He wins immunity, right? They target Joe and Eva, right? Because what else? What if double advantage play? All of a sudden, there's 3 people vulnerable at tribal council, which is Mitch, Camilla, and Kyle. Where do they go from there? Because I don't think that's really that crackpot of an idea. And do we think that
hear this out, right?
Yep.
When we're looking at the strategy of this, if Shaheen wins immunity, right? Let's say hypothetically, at that point, Eva then says, let's just throw this out there. Eva then says, let me just play the safety without power. Let me just play the idol tonight so that when I go to 5, my original tribe has the numbers. We have,
which is more powerful than an idol.
Exactly. The idol is gone. You would mean you'd only have 2 days left to look for an idol at 5. So it's fine, right? And
safety with that power is gone.
But if that happens, we got to talk. Wait,
it expired. I forgot about that. All right, never mind. Either way, there's still an idol, and that's still a 50-50 shot. And either way, I still think Shaheen is winning.
Wait, what?
Survivor now was
Eva didn't play the safety without power? Girl, do something.
No, that makes sense. Actually. That makes a lot of sense.
You wouldn't play the safety without power? Why not?
Because Joe was so paranoid that Eva going that decreases the overall numbers from 7 to it could be a 3-3, right?
What?
Right? And
find an ally. Save Mary. Do so. It's gonna expire.
Gonna do anything? You think she's going to? She benefits from the status quo, Josh.
I don't know. Listen, when we get to Mary, I have a point to bring up, and I think it's been bothering me all season. I think it's been bothering me just a tiny bit.
We'll get to that, but first we're gonna go to Camilla real quick, who I have at number 5.
What?
Again, I would like to remind the people of Survivor Now StockWatch Nation that it's based off of winning potential for my rankings. I think Camilla could make it to the end. I think she could win the jury votes. I do not think based off of the edit or the edgic that she wins. I just feel like her game is too connected with Kyle. She doesn't really stand out on her own outside of making fun of David, which just funny confessionals. I get it. I'm not calling her a weak player. I think everyone in the final 6 outside of Mitch has played a really strong game and would be a great winner. And I think she could be the casualty that goes from a Shaheen immunity win. Assuming they don't take out Mitch, which they very likely could take out Mitch.
But what if they take out Kyle and Camilla gets to the end? Camilla's not winning this game?
I mean, no.
You think Camilla, after what Camilla did this episode, winning an immunity against Joe? Honestly, I feel like they should have.
This was a bad episode for Camilla because Camilla started the episode saying, we got to take out Joe. We got to take out Joe. She has the picture perfect, like, I beat the Dragon Slayer, right? Like, it's like ours taking out Terry Dietz, right? And I feel like it should have been the biggest, most triumphant move of the season. It's Sophie Clark taking out Ozzy at the Final Four of South Pacific, you know? And instead of voting out Joe, they vote out Mary. I understand Camilla didn't trust Mary. I get why we hear from that. But, like, the last 2 episodes, it's like, we got to make a move. We got to do something. Joe and Eva are too big of a duo to not break it up. And they didn't. And I think that is killer this far down the line. What do you think about that? What do you think about the whole episode being like, we got to make this move? Bam.
I think there's
6-1 nothing.
I think it's tough because, like, that should have been the time to make a move.
Yep.
I understand it. From my point of view, I feel like Camilla and Kyle either saw that Shaheen wasn't someone who was willing to flip, or said we may need to wait one more round just to show that we were willing to play this alliance out and then make a move. It's really tough at the 6. I get it. It's really tough. But I see that there are people who have played this game at the top and haven't really had the time to know what it's like to be on the bottom. And I don't feel like this jury is going to respect the people who have had the power the entire time and still really did nothing with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I'm leaning more towards Kyle and Camilla for the winner of this season.
No.
Because I don't feel that the jury is going to respect the game that Eva or Joe has played. I think like they would respect Shaheen's, but not Eva and Joe's.
I don't know how much they would realistically respect Kyle's game either. I feel like Kyle, it's going to be stated in Ponderosa at a certain point that Kyle really wavered, really waffled, and ultimately didn't vote out Joe because he just likes Joe. And that is a big strike against Kyle in his game. Like, he had the move in his hands. He did not need Shaheen. They were good with Mitch, Mary, Kyle, and Camilla, understanding that it is 100% the correct move for them because they still have Eva, who is a giant threat anyways, because she still has an idol. She would still have Shaheen because Shaheen wouldn't be aware of that move. And they would still have their shields, and maybe people would think that they're a duo, but at a certain point, you got to just make a full sprint for the finish line anyways. And so I really have counted Camilla out, honestly.
For me personally, it's been really hard trying to figure out who's the winner of this season because I just continuously see that when it comes to the people who are deciding who is going home, I feel like it's always running through Kyle and Camilla. I feel like Joe here and Eva and Shaheen are the big distraction. The group of people that everyone thinks, oh yeah, that is the group that's making the decisions. I
Yep.
feel like the operation that Kyle and Camilla, that they've played this game, operating as final twos under the radar and unsuspecting, is way more impressive than what anyone else has done. Because for David to call that out, right? For Mary to be on board with that, and for Joe and Eva to not go with it, if Kyle and Camilla are sitting the end, David and Mary are pitching for Kyle or Camilla. I see one of them winning the game. At that point, if let's say like Shaheen is the front runner, Shaheen can still win the game, but Kyle or Camilla will be the second place finalists.
But based off the edit that Camilla received, I don't think this is the kind of edit they would show for a winner if Camilla was the winner. I think Camilla would have stood on her own a little bit more. She had a great pre-merge, and she's obviously supposed to be a big threat for us. But like her visibility kind of tanked early merge. She wasn't really a part of the main group, right? It's obvious she's very much on the outs, only really a part of the game because of Kyle. And so there's a lot of weaknesses in her edit, and I think she's been playing a great game. I'm not like denying that. I just don't see her making it to the final tribal council, and I just don't see her having that great of a win equity compared to everyone else.
Well, hear me out, right? Because this is
just
what I see. The night before Chrissy went home, right? The episode before, somewhere around there, Camilla had that conversation about jury management and continuing to bring up, you have to pay attention to jury management. And I think that's really important too, because she was saying that in defense of Chrissy. And I think that might highlight that maybe Chrissy likes Camilla and would be open to voting for Chrissy. I feel like Chrissy is more upset at, the bigger, the stronger players, like the Joe, the Shaheen, and maybe even Eva, right? But
yeah,
I think with having David, with having Mary, and having Chrissy all in the jury, I feel like those are players that would be open to voting for a Kyle or a Camilla.
Yeah.
Especially when two of them are original SIVA members.
I see that. I just don't see Camilla making it to the final tribal council. She even said in the episode, like, if they take out Joe, there's a very real world where they both can make final tribal council together. And they did not vote out Joe. And when you go against the narrative, I feel like that's kind of a death sentence.
I think it is a death sentence. You're talking about death sentence that Kyle and Camilla sit next to each other?
No, that they didn't take out Joe, which was the whole point of this episode for them.
I feel like this is a big problem because this season is so heavily focused on duos and having your number one. And that's great and all. But here's the problem. If you sit next to your alliance member, you better make sure that you can convince a jury that your game was completely different than the others. Because if they can't differentiate both of your games, it's going to go to the third person sitting next to you. If it's a Joe Eva situation and Kyle is sitting next to them, I'm not counting Kyle out. In fact, I think Kyle can very much win it because I don't know. I would be having to compare, okay, who do I like better out of Joe and Eva? And then whoever I pick out of that, can I compare that person to Kyle's game? And Kyle has been there for almost every major decision in this game. We can't forget that Kyle successfully played an idol. Kyle would have been gone in this game pre-merge.
But Kyle's edit has been dog water, man. Like he's a very clear decoy winner, I feel. And I feel like both Kyle and Camilla, it's like they have the chance. Again, I just feel like the edgic and the editing of the season does not point to a SIVA winner at all. I think no matter what, Alagi was always going to win the season. And we're kind of at that point now where we have to make tough cuts and we have to really say, like, this person doesn't have the maneuverability. They don't have it. And the reason why we can be sure about it is because of the way that they are edited and the way we have to perceive them through the edit. And so that's why, and like what Daryl's saying, he has a Jesse edit, and that's important to keep in mind. And do you want to keep on with Camilla, or do we want to go to number 4?
No, I feel like I've spoken as much as I can about it. I mean, but
I feel
like, I do see the trajectory. Like, I'm still riding and Kyle and Camilla. I do feel like it's sticking with me, and it's so hard because they're focusing so much on that duo, and they're so strategic. Like, those two are our strategists of this season by far. That and Shaheen, but Shaheen kind of works alone. I feel like more of his strategy comes like through his confessional talks with himself.
Yeah.
Kyle and Camilla is more like with each other and also in the confessional. So like those are our 3 strategists this season. But obviously I'm liking, the secrecy of this duo that nobody seems to know about yet. So yeah, that's all I really have to touch on.
Speaking of duos that no one knows about, that's not the case for this next person, because now we're talking Joe, who also had a pretty bad episode.
Lived. Camilla and Joe was both our 3-5 picks.
Yeah, you have Joe at number 5.
Yeah,
I think I understand what you're going to say, but I'd like for you to start.
See, I've been riding on the fact that you have to know your jury.
Yeah,
I think that Joe is actually the distraction winner pick here. People think that Joe and Eva are going to win this game. I don't think they're going to win this game. I think that there have been times in this game where we've seen actions that these players have made to the people that they've sent to the jury. They have not listened to anyone, Will. They have, like, when David comes to Joe and says, hey, listen, I think Kyle and Camilla are a duo. We need to look into this. And Joe sends David home. David's pissed. David's upset. And now sends Mary there. David does the whole thing, standing up, I get it. Wants to be a gentleman. Yup, reenact it. Does his has a little tank top on, backwards hat, looking cool, looking buff, 90s, And for me,
shout out to David, man.
It's telling me this jury isn't gonna respect that there were people who were sitting at the top and still weren't willing to listen to the people at the bottom. If you're a king, right? If you're at the hierarchy and you're up there, you're royalty, and you're still spitting down on the people are gonna revolt and they're not gonna be happy. And that's where I feel this is. Joe is acting like this. I'm not saying that he's doing it on purpose, but Joe is the king of this tribe. Everyone loves him. Everyone sees him as a leader. Nobody wants to get rid of him or even take a shot to make a move. But if I'm on the jury and Joe still didn't listen to the countless times that other people in the jury have come up to him with a plan and said, hey, listen, please listen to me. And Joe said, I'm not listening to this. I'm going to stick with loyalty. If you're not with that group, then you're cast out. Like, I have my totem pole. That would upset me. And what did you do with that power? Like, you just sat at the top. You were comfortable the entire time. The thing that upsets me the most is the way that Joe reacted when Joe was hearing his name thrown out there. This is Survivor. That was the first time that you had your name pitched as a potential vote. And obviously Shaheen didn't take too kindly to that. Like, that's the name of the game. But you've been sitting so comfortable at the top.
Yeah.
What does that tell me that you've done in this game? What did you do to play the game of Survivor? You won 3 immunities. Great. But did you make a move with that safety?
I think what's going to happen is I think Joe is going to be very reminiscent of South Pacific Coach in a way where I think Joe has played, the best game anyone has played this season. I think the fact that he was able to form such a tight-knit alliance originally on Loggy with the California Girls, and then the Vula 2.0, 4.0, like Vula 2.0 foursome, obvious duo with Eva, and I think his social game has been put on blast because, again, Kyle made the wrong move, knowing that voting out Joe or not voting Joe would be very, very risky for the sake of because he likes Joe and respects Joe. And so I think Joe has played a very surprisingly cutthroat game, but he's doing it under the guise of the honor and loyalty thing. That and he's never had a winning confessional in a way where he's like, I want to take the strong people to the end to prove that you can do it. And that's great for Joe and his kids. I'm sure his kids will be like, Papa Joe, that was amazing. You did the thing with honor, but I don't think it's going to work out.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to work out either, Will. I don't see it. Like, you're talking about a player who represents, I want to be this honest and loyal player this game, but you were the one who didn't listen to somebody who I would say was the most loyal player this game. David was willing to ride for that alliance, and you thought that taking him out was the best option, when in reality, it was really best for Kyle and Camilla. That was really a move for them that they can claim. Because I would claim that the David move, the only real big move of this merge, was a Kyle and Camilla move.
Yeah, but I feel like I don't buy into the resume era. I feel like big moves isn't really something people care about, because I feel like, yes, they voted out David, but what happened immediately after, the rest of the outliers got put going. And so it's like, yeah, you voted out David after you had a numbers majority and you were able to successfully eat one of your own. And they're already talking about Shaheen, by the way. I hope you know, Josh. I hope you're reading chat. But Daryl said that Eva will pitch herself very well. We've seen her explain her story very well in episode 5. And that is because Eva is now at our number 3. And I feel like if we have anything more to say about Joe, we can kind of keep them in a lock, because really they're playing very similar games.
Yeah. I mean, look, like, you have Joe and Eva in the
2
final
and 3.
You have the 2 and 3 spot. I have Joe and Eva in the 5 and the 4 spot. I don't see Eva winning this game at all. I know that hear me out.
I'm listening. You got Jay. I got Daryl.
I'm talking to the viewers here now.
I'm talking to Daryl,
Jay,
mainly Daryl.
Eva is not winning this game. Eva had so much power. And there was a comment at Tribal that really struck me, and that made me say, that's not resonating. Eva mentioned at Tribal Council that she couldn't make it to the end without a group of people. You have all the power in the world. You can make a big move. You've chosen not to. You've sat there and let your advantage expire. You work hard for that. I mean, listen, don't. Eva doesn't have anything on her resume. Hear me out.
I'm hearing you.
An idol that was given to you by Star, who you backstabbed and betrayed and sent to the jury and didn't even help. Not found, given. You found another advantage that saved your vote, where you could have got a knowledge is power, but you got that by picking a rock. Luck. The only one you claim is the one that she won immunity on and found at the reward, which gave her the safety without power, which is now expired. Therefore, she had all of her advantages. She can't claim she did without anything else. Star gave it to her because she solved it. That was Star's reasoning. And I don't think Star's going to be very happy with that as well. Along with David, along with Mary, all players who Eva has completely shut the door on. Eva doesn't win this game. And I think Eva is another big distraction. Eva has not made any move and has pretty much, hear me out, ridden the coattails of the people she's with on Logi. I think that the other two have a stronger social game, resume, everything. I think Eva has been sitting at the top. Eva has had the opportunity to make a move, and it's all under the disguise of loyalty. And I don't think that loyalty is going to pay off when you completely shut out the people that you castrated on the bottom. That is the game-ending move for Eva, was jury management. I think Eva, out of the 6 players remaining, has the worst jury management out of everyone remaining.
No, I'm sorry. Mitch has worse.
I don't think Mitch has worse.
I think Mitch has worse. I think everyone on the bottom is going to be mad at Mitch for not making the move.
I'm standing up like David right now.
Please, Daryl. Please, Daryl.
Wait, listen, hear me out.
I'm hearing you.
I just really feel that Eva has not focused on hearing the people she's sending home out. There's a difference between the way Kenzie did it in 46 and how she kind of like nursed those people going home and watched her alliance members go without her being involved in those plans, and Eva being a part of that, and Mary coming up to Eva and saying, hey, would you be interested in making something happen, playing and like shutting her out? Why wouldn't you use a safety without power? Shake up the game.
No, don't. I don't like that idea though, because I feel like Eva's not voting out Joe. Straight up, like they are tight. We know that they are playing in lockstep. To Eva, Joe winning is like her winning. I get that. That's an alliance. It's the same thing with Kyle and Camilla. They pretty much had the same conversation. If Eva votes or uses her safety without power, all that does is it takes a guaranteed vote from Mary off of the board. That incentivizes everyone else to perhaps flip on Joe, because it's like you only need 3 votes to tie. And I think that makes Kyle a lot more likely, or Shaheen a lot more likely, to make the move and then worry about Eva later. I totally am on board with letting an advantage die, because really, if she plays it, it doesn't help her anyways. She was not in danger at all. And Daryl is trying to predict Eva's final tribal council speech. I have an idea. I have a question, a theory, if you will. I'm going to play the graphic just in case, because we haven't done it in a while.
Okay.
Is Eva the losing finalist, and is Joe the fire-making loser? Do you think?
No, Joe is not the fire-making loser. Joe can make fire. Absolutely. And I'm surprised that nobody's really talking about that, being so close to fire. I feel like we're only like 2 tribal councils away, and nobody's really questioning that. But I do see Eva being a losing finalist, depending on who Eva is sitting next to. If Eva's sitting next to Shaheen and Joe, then I think Eva, very well could be the third. I think Eva's definitely at the bottom of that totem pole when it comes to those 3. But I want to say, like, Gemini, Jay, the comments saying like Star and Mary, they're not going to vote for Eva. They won't. Mm-hmm. Eva really pushed them to the side. And I honestly, I don't know where Star would vote in a Shaheen or a Joe situation, but Mary might lean more towards a Shaheen there. I don't see Eva winning. I don't see that any moves were dictated or influenced by Eva. And I actually think the alliance with Joe is going to hurt her rather than help her in this game. Taking out Joe would actually be a move that I think would gain traction with you to win. Saying that you had to take out a big player because you couldn't win against them in the end, that might help you get the edge in the end.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that I don't think Eva's winning. I just have her number 2 because it's the safest pick, I think, because there's still a lot of good things going with Eva. I have Daryl explaining it all away for me. I understand that she can be very cold, but I feel like the jury is going to be locked in where it's either they vote for an outsider who didn't really do a lot, because I understand Kyle and Camilla, they've been in control the whole game, but like the whole game has just been one big pagonging where every outsider outside of David just gets plucked off one by one by one by one. And I feel like the jury just won't, they're not going to be like, wow, Kyle and Camilla, they really played the best strategic game, because it was so in lockstep with Joe and Eva anyways.
So are you saying that an outsider may win this game?
Nope.
Why wouldn't they?
Because the only outsider left in the game is Camilla and Mitch, 2 players.
Hold up.
But Camilla's not making final tribal council.
Let's forget about the ladder. I heard Camilla. You said outsider. Camilla sits in the end. I think Camilla could win this game.
Yeah. If Camilla goes on a stream, it can win the next 8 immunity challenges and plays 3 idols and gets and is with her and Kyle and Mitch, where the jury probably votes for Kyle anyways. Like
Kyle.
But like I just don't
Kyle
see
in fire, and you still have Kyle's vote to win.
I just don't see her
Kyle
making it, man. Look,
you right? If Kyle goes to the jury and Camilla's up there, you know who's gonna rally?
Then yeah, Camilla wins.
Kyle's gonna rally the troops.
I still just don't see it, man.
He's gonna tell the jury and say, "Hey, listen, nobody knew."
Yeah, the important word is if. That's the only thing. Like, granted, there's a few people I think where if they made Final Tribal Council on the season, they'd like if Kevin made Final Tribal Council. If we were talking episode 1, Kevin had a great episode 1, great premiere. We could have talked about Kevin the same way we're talking about Camilla now, you know?
Yeah.
But that is all to say we have 2 more people, and so we're going to take a quick ad break.
Okay.
Real quick, let tempers lower, become zen, become chill. We're listening to bracketology as well. Take it away, Mr. Bracketology.
Think you're the most knowledgeable Survivor superfan? Well, you can put that to the test with our Fantasy Survivor game. Welcome to Bracketology, fantasy sports for reality TV. We provide fantasy football style games for your favorite shows like Survivor and many more. We also have bracket style elimination challenges. Set your picks once for the whole season to see how your prediction skills fared. And don't forget to check out the season extras like contestant info, where you can see all the bios of each contestant, and our scoring recaps that are published each episode. Download the Bracketology mobile app or play on your computer at fantasy.bracketology.tv. It's entirely free to play, and you can win some awesome prizes. Good luck.
Shout out to Bracketology, but either way, I'm still bitter to anything that's draft-based, because every year I do fantasy football, and every year I always get second place, which with how my league works is basically a push. So I haven't gained or lost money from fantasy football, and I've been playing for the last like 5 years. Like I've just consistently gotten second. It's been really rough.
You're still making money, I hope, right?
No, because so the league is $50. Second place gets $50.
Okay, entry fee, free league. Like
what?
I get third place every year. At least I make like $20. Hey, I'll take it.
It's just from how my league works.
4 months of hard work on fantasy just for like a cup of coffee.
Anywho, once again, you're in the. I think Kyle's been on one big downfall.
Kyle.
Yeah.
It's Kyle. Like, listen, I love Kyle. I've still been rooting for him. It's been really hard kind of navigating. Okay, do I think Kyle's going to win? Do I think Shaheen's going to win? I don't see Eva winning anymore. Okay, let's look at this 6. Kyle is who I think the best strategist in terms of what's happened so far in this game, resume-wise. He's been on both sides of the alliance, on the outsiders, also on the insiders. People want to kind of make deals with him and still want to play with him. And I feel like there are 2 people in this game who can speak to that. Kyle in Shaheen. When I say that, I'm referring to the fact that everybody on the tribe wants to work with these people. Shaheen and Kyle are the top 2 players in terms of these are the people who I want to move forward with in this game. And I think that should be recognized. Our final 2 players that we have on this ranking are definitely at the top. 100%. Yeah. Nobody's targeting them right now. They're in a good spot, and I would say that they are respectively at the top of their original tribe dynamics with who's left. Kyle is by far the best Siva remaining, just in terms of alliances and moves. And Shaheen is more probably the more social one, working, kind of having those conversations with everyone. What do you think?
I still feel like, I think, yes, on paper, on the island, Kyle might be in the best position more than anyone else. I think just from the edit, though, this whole episode, it was like a beautiful gift for Kyle and Camilla to make the move. Camilla won that epic challenge.
Yeah.
Very strategic. Kyle had his moment where he revealed that he was a lawyer. Like, this was a great episode had they voted out Joe. But because they didn't and they voted out Mary, I think just lost them the game. And I do think, if not Alagi, I do agree that Kyle is the best Siva remaining. Yes. I still don't buy the Siva winning theory. The
thing that's really tough with this too, Will, is that like everyone on Logi does have a strong resume, but is that resume worthy of a jury vote? That's the question. It's really tough because like if you're gonna sit with any combination of anyone from Logi, it's going to be a tough battle. You're going to have Joe, who's won 3 immunities, our comp beast of the season. Eva, who's our advantage beast of the season. Shaheen, debate professor, probably the social strategist of the season. You know, Kyle, Camilla running under the radar, and then there's just like Mitch.
Yeah.
So
Mitch.
Yeah, I really wish Mitch maybe if Mitch got the steal a vote instead of the block a vote, I feel like there would have been a bigger move that would have happened.
And what's Kyle's best final 3?
Final 3?
Joe?
Kyle's best final 3 100% needs to have Camilla on the jury because he needs Camilla rallying the troops for him. And Camilla already has stated, if I was to be on the jury, you know, I would vote for you. So that's good to know. I mean, obviously, Kyle's not the type of player who's going to backstab Camilla, but if Camilla happens to be on the jury, Kyle's going to get a vote. So that's something that, you know, maybe Kyle should consider. I don't think that's his character, though. For him to win, I really do think. Hear me out.
I'm hearing you. I'm getting the crackpot ready.
I think for Kyle to win this game, he would need to sit next to Joe and Eva. I think that's the only way because he needs to have that duo's votes split.
I think if he puts Joe on the jury, and as long as he's not sitting next to
Shaheen,
Eva,
next to Shaheen, he cannot sit next to Shaheen. There's no way. I don't think Kyle wins it next to Shaheen. We forget that Shaheen is a debate professor. When we see him in Final Tribal Council,
but
he's going to be working that.
I feel like even then, though, it's like the amount of poker players that have been on Survivor that all are terrible. Like some of the worst Survivor players are poker players, which is a job that is all about bluffing and lying. It's something that would work really well in Survivor. I don't really buy into occupations really helping or hurting in Survivor just because, like, yes, he's a debate professor. Kyle's also a lawyer, and I don't think Kyle's winning the game, you know?
Yeah. The thing, it would be interesting too. I think it would be really iconic, specifically with just like the jobs, if Shaheen, a debate professor, and Kyle, a lawyer, both were sitting in the final tribal, I think that would be a pretty good tribal council in terms of like the arguments being made, because those two professions literally like debate for their job. Like they are trained at coming up with a opening statement, a thesis, arguments in between, a conclusion. Like they're trained to do that. So I would also say that, Kyle and Shaheen speak very well for themselves in this game.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they're very dangerous speakers. I'm surprised that people are targeting people based on like maybe more physical attributes this season rather than who is a better talker, who can convince a jury and sway a vote. That's what's more scary. And that's what I personally would be looking at when it came to who I wanted to sit next to in the end. That's what scares me. Who can talk their way out of something or talk their way into something, right?
I kind of disagree. I feel like no matter what, I really don't see a world where like the final tribal council will matter, because we're talking about a bitter jury, and bitter juries, they don't really listen to the finalists. And so I feel like what's going to happen is, I think if Shaheen wins, he's going to make it to the final tribal council against like either Joe and Eva and Mitch. And I think the people who are going to vote Shaheen are always going to vote him in that scenario. I think Joe gets 2 votes from Eva and Kyle. I think everyone else votes Shaheen.
I think you're right. You do make up a great point, and I'd like to kind of reiterate that point you made. A bitter jury doesn't really listen to the finalists. They come in with their mind made up. Whose mind are they going to be looking at? I think if Shaheen is there, it's definitely they're going to be looking at him. It will be split at the beginning. I don't think it will be decided, but we have to remember who each jury member is going to be bitter towards. Cedric and Star, to me, are the only 2 players in the jury so far that I feel are going to be the most neutral and not come in with emotion, and that will be coming in to listen. But Cedric's vote will go to Mitch if Mitch is sitting at the end.
No.
I feel that, absolutely.
I don't think Mitch is getting anything, honestly. I think he's...
You don't think Cedric would vote for Mitch? Cedric has done a lot of things this game. I think
Cedric has voted for a lot of people.
I think that he would vote for Mitch. I think so. Just because, remember that conversation that Mitch and Cedric had? I feel like they had a close connection, but to me, Cedric didn't have a close connection with anyone on the remaining cast except for Mitch. I think Mitch would have an advantage if Mitch was sitting in the end, specifically for Cedric's vote. But that's only one vote.
Yeah. Maybe I'm just wrong as well.
Bitter juries?
When I think of bitter juries in the past,
Blood vs. Water 2? San Juan del Sur? That was a bitter jury.
What? I mean, like, hold the fort here. What do you mean they were bitter?
Other jury speech?
They were bitter. I mean, okay, maybe like deservingly bitter. Like, I think yes, they were bitter, but I also think 100% they deserve to be bitter. I'm thinking like Thailand, where it was a season where a lot of the jurors they were locked into voting either Clay or Brian, no matter what. Like the people who voted Clay were always voting Clay. The people who voted Brian were always voting Brian, and they were kind of locked in.
Well, Philippines was also a bitter jury too. Everyone was. I mean, remember Penner's speech towards Scoopin and
everyone.
Lisa?
And Denise. He wasn't nice to Denise either.
He went after everyone that season, but that was a pretty clean sweep. It was a 6-1-1. I'm trying to think like who was bitter. I mean, you could say Susan from season 1, Borneo. Like that was just that's like my first recollection of like the first bitter jury member. I would say Thailand's a really good pick, specifically because you had like 2 people in the end that like not a lot of people liked. They were both really chaotic, Brian and Clay.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to think. Bitter.
I think
Samoa?
Jay also had
Samoa, maybe?
no. I mean, yeah, but
Samoa,
no.
yeah, Samoa, because they were coming after Russell and the doctor. What was
Nick.
his name? Yeah, it was that one speech that said, in
Eric Cardona.
that was it, right?
Yep.
I remember the speeches, the jury speeches. I got to make a list. My favorite jury speeches of Survivor.
My favorite will always be Kathy in Survivor All Stars, but I think it's time.
Really? To Rob, the speech to Rob about Lex?
Yes.
Or am I thinking of something else? I remember that Kathy was really upset about Lex going home.
Yeah, but we'll talk about that later. I want to go back on track to Shaheen because this was a weird episode for him, but I want to defend it.
Really?
Yes,
weird episode? I'm sorry. Do you see what is that?
Yeah, this is one.
Winner?
So here's the thing with Shaheen. I understand why a lot of people aren't high on him. I understand he is kind of a crackpot. He is kind of an out there pick. I think Kyle has a more traditional winner edit, assuming he does win, which I still don't think so. I think Eva also has a more traditional path and journey. Shaheen is someone where we're often wanting more from him, which is a very similar trait that Rachel had last season, by the way. My thing with him, there's a few things I want to point out. He had one confessional, again, where we talked about him winning immunity. I do think that is coming up. Either that or he goes out next episode, which would be kind of wild, and him not winning immunity is the cause of him going home. But he talked about not closing doors and always being open. And I think a lot of people are disappointed that Shaheen didn't flip this episode, but I think that works out. And I don't think he realized, but I think he made the smarter move. I just don't think he realized, and I think he's a very, very lucky player. Daryl's still not on the Shaheen board, but here's
you make a good point. Like, being open in a game of Survivor is extremely beneficial, and it's what keeps the blood off your hands. And I think Shaheen has done a very good job of keeping that blood off of his hands. So yeah, I think it's a point that you make.
But I don't think he was wrong at any point this episode. He said, maybe he can beat Joe. Jury is not out on that. Literally, like, yes, Joe is built and talked up to be a giant threat, but I feel like Shaheen is saying that he's playing a better game, a game that's a little more under the radar, a little less exposed, and Joe is a giant target right now. Whether or not that works, who's to say, right? I think Shaheen wins this war. I also liked how he correctly identified the fact that Mary was not a locked vote, and that it was kind of close between Mary and Joe. I also am bringing up this comment that Jay sent 30 minutes ago, where Mary said that she would vote Shaheen over Joe, which is, it backs up what Shaheen said. I know we don't really use exit interviews. Maybe that could mean that Shaheen didn't make final tribal council, but I don't think he was delusional, and I don't think he was set out to be delusional. I feel like if we wanted him to seem more delusional, we would get a confessional from Camilla going like, hey, why aren't you voting out Joe? Like, Shaheen, what are you doing? You're the biggest idiot to ever play this game. A very on-brand Camilla confessional. But I don't think Mary votes Eva over Shaheen. I don't think they were close at all.
I don't think Mary votes Eva at all.
Yeah.
I don't think Mary votes Eva at all. I think that that their connection in this game is non-existent. I don't think that they've been on the same page. I don't feel, even when Mary was working with Eva never threw Mary a bone. And, when Star threw a bone to Eva still kind of tossed that to the ground. So I really want to, continue to reiterate this. I'm sorry. I do think right now Shaheen is the winner of this season. But again, I think in any scenario, if you're sitting next to Eva isn't going to win this game. I don't see the win trajectory on Eva.
See, the problem is with everyone. I think the people with the best chance of making Final Tribal Council have the worst jury management. People with the best jury management, I just don't see them making it to the Final Tribal Council. And Shine's the only person to kind of be in the middle. And so I do think that we are due for one part bitter jury. I think it'll explain the loss of Eva and Joe. It could be the story of how they lost. And so I feel like, sorry, I had to collect my thoughts and also read chat because I'm a good podcaster, I promise. I feel like Shine has always been a player where the edit is going to show his flaws because I think there's a lot of faults to his game. And I think the story isn't necessarily how Shaheen won the season 48 of Survivor. It is the story of Joe and Eva, a pair that created the most dominant alliance in New Era history, low-key. Thank you, by the way, Gemini. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you. And I think it's one part like the Natalie White effect, where another person gets more screen time. And I don't know. I just have a good gut feeling about Shaheen.
I mean, I can't disagree with anything that you've said. I mean, you're right. Shaheen and Kyle, as I've said before, I feel have played like this game where everyone still wants to work with them, but nobody's targeting them. I have Shaheen just a little bit higher than Kyle, only because I still feel that there's a way that Kyle and Camilla don't want to go after Shaheen and are still wanting to go after the people closest to him. And I think that that's what's gonna get them in the end, because you take out Joe and Eva, those will still vote for Shaheen in the end. But if you keep those two around, those two can't vote in the jury. You take those votes away from the jury and you give the power to everyone else. That's why I think if anyone wants a legit shot at winning the game, you need to go to the end with Joe and Eva and convince the jury that you have a better game than them. It's a tough challenge, but if you feel like you have a strong enough game for it and you're up for the challenge, I think I truly think that might be the best shot. I know it's strong resume, but I don't feel that people will respect their game.
Nope. And one last comment left from Jay is a lot of the times too, something we don't really talk about a lot on StockWatch is reactionary edits, right? Where I feel like a lot of the time something will happen in Survivor where like they'll do an editing trick or gimmick and it either works or it backfires, and the editors will always adjust in the next season. I think part of it, happened with like season 19 and 20, where they understood how far of a game Russell played and how crazy he was on Heroes versus Villains and Samoa, and so they really amped up his screen time in order to sell him as a character, so he can be on Heroes versus Villains and like be a legend, even though he played one season prior. I think we're kind of seeing the inverse effect of this, where, like what Jay said, Rachel did get a pretty obvious winner edit at the final 8. I forgot what happened at the final 8 or that episode, but I just remember that she got a very obvious winner edit where everyone else was either really poor or really this, really that. I also think that explains why the edit is so weird and why there's so many contenders left. And I feel like no matter what, Shine's been the most consistent with New Era editing regardless. So that's like the last thought I had.
No.
In response to Jay. Anywho, Josh, is there anything else we have to like really talk about? I mean, I feel like we're kind of getting down to the nitty gritty. We're getting down to the wire.
Yeah, no, I feel like we've had a great conversation. We left everything out on the table. My winner pick is still up in the air. I still feel like there's a lot of game left. I'm going to leave it up to the two people that I have in my top two, Shaheen or Kyle. I think that's what I'm riding for. If Kyle is eliminated, replace Kyle with Camilla. But those are the three that I'm looking at to win this game. I think that's my top three in terms of who can win this game.
I got you. And I think that's it. I'm going to give the commenters a little second if they have any other questions as I plug the new apparel we have. You could be looking really sexy and really cool if you wear the Survivor Now shirts. I know I've been wearing plaid since day one. That's because I'm very loyal. Josh just puts on whatever.
I put on my Survivor buff.
He puts on the Survivor buff.
Yeah.
But if you want to rock the full-blown Survivor Now experience, you can get a shirt. There's also our Patreon as well. Lots of cool stuff happening on the Patreon. Support small podcasters. It's like a business, kind of. That's how I've always sold it as. There's also Australia versus the World, which is a crazy season that's going to happen. I've seen some of the who's making three as well as we go along. I'm saying Mitch, Shaheen, and I'm gonna say Eva as my number three.
Okay, I'm saying Shaheen, Kyle, and let's throw in Joe.
Let's
throw in Joe. I think it's going to be a crazy final three.
Oh, yeah. Anywho, I will see you, or not I. We will see y'all next Thursday. That's my fault. I'm sorry, Josh. I'm so used to like talking my server voice. Sometimes I treat the chatters, our lovely viewers, as like a table, which says more about me than anything else. But anywho, I thank you all. Josh thanks you all, and we will see y'all next week.
Bye-bye.